The latest Pompey news, updates every day from the Pompey Sound news desk.
John Bozzino on all those changes against Charlton.
6 changes sounds like a lot, but if you go through it, we had Andre suspended and the 2 centre-halves injured, so there's 3 which were enforced. I sort of count the 4th as Terry Devlin coming back in after suspension. It's one we were probably going to make anyway, so that leaves 2 changes for the 6. We brought Swifty and Chappers into the starting 11 and mixed things about a bit. We looked at the way Charlton play and wanted to do something slightly different with the front line. Ultimately, we have plenty of players in there who are able to play. With Swift and Chaplin, you're bringing in a huge amount of championship experience, and Chappers played in the Premier League last year, so we were really confident going in. Them coming in was a bit to do with their substitute appearances against Bristol City, but you also have to take into account how players have trained. Mignoc has been right at it since he came out of the side as well. We're trying to find the right solution at the moment. What we don't want to do is just keep sticking at the same thing hoping for the best, because we haven't been good enough in recent weeks.
There will be those critics who will say, yeah, but you can't just put an experimental 11 out as a starting lineup every week in case it works. But I think what John Bozzino has laid out there is the thinking behind the changes that were effected, the changes that he chose to make. He makes the point that 4 of the changes were enforced, but 2 of the changes, that bringing in Swift and Chappers, as he calls him, that is a pretty handy fallback situation to have if you're a head coach, a manager, a boss, a gaffer, whatever we call them these days. Bringing in those 2 players with so much championship experience, and as he reminds us, of course, Chaplin played in the Premier League not that long ago, so he was wall-to-wall, top-level experience. A great guy to be able to bring into the side as long as he's firing on all cylinders, cooking with gas. And what little I saw of him, I don't know if you agree with me, good Pompey Sound listener to these podcasts and output, he looked pretty lively. He looked a cut above what we've seen of him so far. To be fair to us, I think the occasional murmur that he's not quite got it together yet for us is fair. And I believe he himself has been the first to say so. So if he's back on song, and if Swift is also back on song, then we have a very solid set of experienced pros taking the youngsters who've got the legs and who've got the effervescence and got the enthusiasm, different type of enthusiasm from a player who's been playing professional football for 10 and 15 years. Get that blend right, and you're going in the right direction, surely.
Pompey will have to face relegation rivals Swansea City on Tuesday without Andre DOZZELL, thanks to a strange twist of fate following Saturday's abandoned match at Charlton Athletic. The midfielder, a constant presence in the team this season, was supposed to serve a 1-game ban at the Valley after picking up his 5th yellow card of the campaign. He was duly left out of the squad for the trip to South London. However, the game was halted early on because of a medical emergency in the stands. After a delay of nearly an hour, the match was officially abandoned, with Charlton later confirming the tragic death of a supporter. The fixture will now be replayed in full at a later date, effectively wiping Saturday's 12-minute contest from the record. But here's the frustrating catch for Pompey. While the match is now void, any disciplinary action that took place still stands. For example, Addicks defender Lloyd Jones was booked after just 4 minutes, and that yellow card stays on his record. It's a situation we saw earlier this season when Ipswich Town's Jacob Greaves was sent off in an abandoned game but still had to serve his suspension. For DOZZELL, the rule works in reverse. Because the Charlton match was never completed, FA rules state it doesn't count as a game served for his ban. That means his 1-match suspension now carries over to the next fixture, Tuesday's crucial clash with Swansea. Losing the 26-year-old who has started all 18 matches so far is a huge blow for manager John Mousinho. DOZZELL has been one of the few bright spots in a difficult start to the season on the South Coast. He isn't the first player to be hit with a 1-match ban for accumulated yellows, as John Swift was forced to miss the 1-0 defeat to Stoke in October. In better news, Terry Devlin is available again after serving a suspension for his recent red card. Several other Pompey players are walking a disciplinary tightrope heading into the next cut-off point. Marlon Pack and Regan Paul are both sitting on 4 bookings, just 1 caution away from a ban themselves. Josh Murphy and Zach Swanson are close behind on 3 yellows each.
Makes you wonder whether teams before a game are acquainted with which of the opposition are on 4 yellow cards. And does it affect the way that they play the game? Much will depend on the nature of the opposition that team will be playing in the next game. If it's a tight fixture, and if they desperately need that player to be fit for that game, then he might just take his foot off the gas a little bit. It's possible that planning is taken to such nth degree, and with the stakes being as high as they are, why not? We will miss DOZZELL against Swansea, but then we would have missed him against Charlton. I guess the only comfort we can gain from the 12 minutes that happened before the tragic incident is that that defensive unit will have had an opportunity to gel, because there's every possibility that will be the defensive unit against Swansea. I want to take half a minute, if you'll indulge me, to clear up a slight misunderstanding that occurred between myself hosting and Steve Bone on the Steve Bone podcast. And it was that I said I was surprised that Michael Eisner had been so firm and clear in making a promise that we are not going to get relegated. And Steve replied, I'm not quite sure he was as specific or definite as to make that a promise. And I said, well, I'm afraid I haven't heard it, but what I've read about it, reported in the press, is that he said we're not going to get relegated. And if you listen to it...
We're not going to get relegated.
That is what he said. I'll play it again.
We're not going to get relegated.
So that's pretty unambiguous, isn't it? But what wasn't reported, and what Steve Bone noticed, and what I missed, but then got when I listened to it all the way through, is that this is what he actually said.
Our goal, we're not going to get relegated.
Now that is very different from...
We're not going to get relegated.
When he says...
Our goal, we're not going to get relegated.
It's not a promise. He's promising that is their goal. Their goal is we're not going to get relegated. What they're going to try and achieve to do is not get relegated. Their highest priority is that we're not going to get relegated. But he did not say...
We're not going to get relegated.
He said this.
Our goal, we're not going to get relegated.
It might sound like a subtlety to some people, but to a journalist of the proficiency of Steve Bone, it's easy meat.
Our goal, we're not going to get relegated.
After the tragic death of a Charlton fan brought Saturday's match to a halt just 12 minutes in, Pompey boss John Mousinho knew there was something he had to do. He felt he owed it to the travelling fans, and he was deeply touched by how they responded. With the game called off at 0-0, Mousinho left the dressing room and walked back onto the pitch to thank the large crowd of visiting supporters packed into the Jimmy Seed stand. He was met with a warm chorus of the familiar, "Who needs Mourinho" chant, followed by a wave of applause that acknowledged the somber moment. For a manager who has faced growing criticism as Pompey has slid down the league table, the reaction meant a lot. First and foremost, the most important thing today was the sad passing of a Charlton supporter. Football came second, Mousinho said. It's incredibly sad news, and as a club, and me personally, our thoughts are with the family and friends of the fan who tragically died. We lost one of our own at a game in January, so we understand the pain. Once the match had been abandoned, I felt the right thing to do was go to our fans and show my appreciation for them coming out and backing us. I told the press in the week I knew that, despite all the struggles we've had lately, we were still going to have 3,000 fans packing out the away end, he continued. They spend their money to travel and support us come rain or shine, and we got that again today. Reflecting on their reception, he added, from their reaction they haven't given up on me yet, which is quite nice. I have a great relationship with them. It has been a fantastic 3 years, and hopefully it can keep going.
Quite nice, he says. Quite nice. No, it's fantastic. I don't think there's been a manager who has found himself managing a team that is in the relegation position at this stage in the season, who is applauded by the fans, who is loved by the fans, We know what we've got with him. We know he's a bit special because he is, isn't he? He's a star player in so many ways because he's not just got all the skills, the experience, the tactical nous, the eloquence, which he sometimes hides a little bit because he doesn't want to appear, over florid with his eulogies and eloquence. I did hear him say a week or so ago that he wanted Pompey's performances to improve exponentially. And, you don't hear, as Steve Bones said to me off the record, you don't hear Neil Warnock saying that he wants the side to improve exponentially. But there's more to it than diplomacy. He's got diplomacy and he's got it in spades, buckets. He talks about the fact that the fans spend their money and their time and their devotion and their passion to travel and support the club, come rain or shine. He said, and we got it again today. And then self-deprecatingly says from their reaction, they haven't given up on me yet. They sure haven't. Who needs Mourinho is a good chant. It's a good name for a podcast. A podcast which is sometimes better than indifferent on the BBC. Who needs Mourinho? But he's faced growing criticism from certain little tiny corners, and he's riding it out. And he makes a good point, of course, about the priorities of the moment. It was that one's thoughts had to be with the family and the loved ones of the person who, it turns out, didn't make it, sadly. And I don't mean to couch it in those terms in any way disparagingly or dismissively. He died. And that's where one's head and heart is in a situation like that. And he recalls, of course, the time that, and he said we lost a supporter at a game. And I remember, he says, exactly what that felt like. So that was in my mind and my heart. And he implies that it was also in the hearts and minds of the travelling faithful, who then burst into a spontaneous round of applause. And a large part of it was directed at the friends and family of the deceased and the Charlton fans and staff who had done everything that they could in order to give the victim, is it a victim? The deceased, an opportunity to pull through. So all in all, despite it being a disappointment, and we haven't got no DOZZELL for Swansea, that's attended elsewhere, it was a good occasion of humanity amongst football fans who often get a bad press and sometimes deserve it, but sometimes they don't.